Hi, I'm Randolph Miller, and welcome to Bounce Around Charleston. There's a lot going on in our nation, in our state, and right here locally. So I have some wonderful guests here today to talk about a very serious matter. Well, I have Deputy Chief Jerome Taylor of the Charleston Police Department. Then I have Muhyiddin Dabaha, Black Lives Matter. And then I have the pastor, the Reverend Nelson Rivers of the National Action Network and the pastor of the Charity Missionary Baptist Church. Welcome to Bounce Around Charleston.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Gentlemen, let me tell you how we got here. There was a shooting of a young man, Walter Scott, a while back, April 4th, 2015. And then dealing with that shooting along with Slager, the police officer, and the recording of the video, and all that happened to make it look, well, like we talk about it being a race issue, race matter. And that sparked a lot of conversations, a lot of stuff within our public. And so here we are with a lot going on in our nation right now, with young black men being shot. But then there's something major also happening. There are now police officers being shot, which I've been calling it a copycat type situation. So what are we saying about all of this that's happening in our nation? Let's start with you, Deputy Chief.
Okay. You mentioned in reference to the individuals being shot and also black males being shot, also police officers being shot. One thing about it, it's obvious I'm both. I'm a black male and I'm a police officer. One of the things that I can understand black males' relationship with the law enforcement. I know how I, as a black male, feels when law enforcement pull behind them and stop them at night or in the daytime. And also at the same time, I know how a police officer feels walking down a dark alley. I know how a police officer feels encountering individuals. So a lot of time what occurs among the interaction between the public, law enforcement, and citizen is just one thing we have to keep in mind: safety first. Safety for the citizen, safety for the law enforcement officer. A lot of time we just need to de-escalate. You know, we try to look at it from the particular point. How do we get to the point where there is some violent exchange, whether it's gunfire, fisticuff, or whatever? And that's just one of the things that we need to just look at it from the point of view of what brought the tension to the point of somebody being killed or somebody being injured. Because I don't think that any police officer, professional officer, leave home in the daytime with the intention of killing somebody. And I do not think that any black male that stopped, or any citizen who stopped, feel as if that being stopped by the law enforcement officer, they will lose their life.
Okay, thank you, sir. Now, before you respond, Dabaha, I want to show a clip from Black Collective, who allowed us to use this video, and we thank them for that. I want to show a clip of you being arrested recently, and I want you to respond to that, because I understand that it brings out a rage in you, because you only wanted to voice your opinion, but you weren't able to do that, so they arrested you to get you out of the room. Let's take a look at that.
People that believe that this country is not treating us equally and therefore are fighting for their liberation. The backlash is real. So July 21st, Public Safety Committee meeting, North Charleston City Hall. We walk in, sign up for a public comments period, just like other council meetings we've been to. We called earlier that day just to make sure that there was a public comments period, and we were told that all we had to do was come in early enough to sign our name. After sitting patiently through the Public Safety Committee meeting, we noticed the gavel was going down and the meeting was called to an end. And there was no time, no call for comments from the public. And so I stood up and I started to address the council.
Their concerns, let's listen in for a second.
Got developed based upon engagement. Hey,
Our free speech, our First Amendment rights were denied by a supposed municipal code that said if you speak off topic, you get arrested. And that's essentially what happened. I wasn't speaking to the topics that they decided were approved topics, and therefore Mayor Summy had me escorted out of the room and then subsequently arrested. They charged me with disorderly conduct. I think it's similar to the disturbing schools law that our children are being expelled and put out of school for. It's up to the discretion of whoever has the power, whether that is the teacher, in this case the mayor.
We just watched that video. You were arrested because you wanted to voice an opinion. How do you feel?
Well, I feel like that opinion is now being heard a little bit more, and so I'm grateful for that. And I understand that sacrifice has to be made in order for there to be progress. And so to speak for and to be a spokesperson of the Black Lives Matter Charleston movement here is exciting, because we're just a group of individuals who are children of individuals that have either benefited from affirmative action or have suffered under the detriment of mass incarceration. And so we're a generation that's trying to heal ourselves and come together, because not all of us are being brutalized, not all of us are being harassed. There's a particular part of us that have sons and have uncles and have fathers and have mothers that have been taken out of the home because of the criminal justice system. And therefore, the movement itself is a criminal justice reform movement, and so it's not anti-police or anything like that.
You know, I walked in the studio today, and I must say this. I walked in the studio today, and I saw you and Deputy Chief Taylor having a wonderful conversation sitting in the lobby. And I just listened and watched you all, and I said, this is good to see.
Yes, we were discussing several things. I told him there's numerous things that we can agree on, and I'm quite sure there's numerous things that we can disagree on. But it's just the idea of coming together with a common denominator.
Okay, thank you, sir. Pastor Rivers.
Yes, sir.
What is your take on this whole matter?
Well, I know them both. I've known Officer Taylor before he was Officer Taylor, and we were just talking about knowing my father and how long I've known and have deep respect for him. His sister's a member of my church. When my cousin was killed and murdered, first person I talked to on the scene in front of my mother's house was Officer Taylor, Deputy Chief Taylor. I've known Muad'Dim since he made himself known to me. I have deep respect for him. He is committed. I see myself in him those years ago. I understand his impatience. I understand his distaste for injustice. And it was outrageous that they would arrest him for speaking. I mean, it just goes to undermine all the stuff the mayor said last year after Walter Scott was killed. Muad'Dim did not represent a threat, other than the threat of not knowing your place, boy. It's like Kunta versus Toby. When we insist that we will be respected as black men, there are forces in our community that want us to say Toby when my name is Kunta. And if I insist on self-definition, I'm a threat. And I'm not trying to be a threat. I'm just saying that in 2016, time out for that. I'm not going to have you treat me in 2016 the way you treated us in 1966. That means that 50 years was wasted. I'm not going to go back to that. I'm not going to let you just abuse a young brother who's expressing views of a lot of folk who were there with him, disrespect him, and do it in such a way that gives you comfort because you can't handle somebody challenging you, because in North Charleston, often, if you are not able to be complicit and go along to get along, the mayor's made it pretty clear that he can be pretty harsh. He doesn't. You saw the election night when he was upset that somebody had the nerve to run against him and 4,000 people voted against him. He threatened retribution. And I wondered whether what happened to Muad'Dim, I was out of town, else I may have been there, that was some part of retribution. But the greater issue that the Officer Taylor Muad'Dim were talking about, and maybe this is a myth that folk need to have disabused. Black men are black men in uniform, out of uniform, in the collar or without a collar. I've been stopped by the North Charleston police at least twice as pastor of charity, and what I clearly thought was racial profiling. And I'm the pastor, and I'm not an unknown person.
Okay.
I'm pretty well known around North Charleston, but I still got stopped. Never got ticketed. I don't know if the stop was documented, but it was clear to me I was being profiled. That happened to me. I'm the pastor. So when I took my suit off and put on my Raiders hat, my Raiders gear, because I'm a big Raiders fan, and I'm the same suspect as everybody else. And even when I'm dressed up, rolling, I can still get stopped because a lot of people see me just as a black man. That's a universal feeling. He is telling you, the deputy chief is telling you that when he takes that uniform off, there's some places he know he can't go. In some places he might get stopped because he's black. What the difference is now, I love the millennials for this reason. They're less driven by bling, less driven by the outward appearances of wealth. They're less driven by meism. They're more driven by us and we. And it's really refreshing to me because we need them now more than we've ever needed them before. We don't need another generation like mine and the ones that followed us who are so caught up on this mythology of being accepted by the greater culture that we don't work to free ourselves from the oppression that we find ourselves in. That's what I appreciate about him. At the same time, I want to protect the life of my brother.
All right.
I don't want any police officer to be killed. At my church, just last month in June, we had a Blessed Are the Peacekeepers Day. Blessed Are the Peacemakers. He was there. The assistant chief of North Charleston was there. The chief of North Charleston was there. We were celebrating before the stuff happened in Dallas, before it happened in Baton Rouge. We already had a day honoring the work of law enforcement. At the same time, we wanted them, and I said this to Deputy Chief Taylor, it's hypocritical for the police to tell my young brothers, go ahead and snitch on somebody so you can have them brought to justice. One of the things police always tell us, we need the community to help us apprehend the bad guys. So that means I got to tell you who did it.
Okay.
But a police officer will watch another police officer shoot, kill, or murder, or beat up somebody and don't say jack. You can't have it both ways.
Okay, put a point right there. We're going to come back. But after the break, I want to talk about why the problem with the protesting. Because as I watch TV and I watch the news, many times when the protesting is going on, there's so much to want to stop the protesting, and then there's a lot of violence that takes place in the protesting. And I want to find out, is it from the police side of it, or is it from the bystanders? Okay, we want to talk about that, and we want to talk about the recent shootings that's been happening, because no longer is it just the black males being shot, but now they're targeting the police officers. I have a problem with what's going on in our country. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this break. Okay, welcome back to Bounce Around Charleston. Going into the break, we were talking about the protesting and what we view on the news. Okay, and I want to thank Deputy Chief Taylor for being here, and I want to thank Debaha, is that how to say that? For being here, and Pastor Rivers. Now, Tuesday, July the 5th, we had an incident in Baton Rouge. Police shoots 37-year-old Alton Sterling. Wednesday, July 6th, police officer shoots 32-year-old school cafeteria supervisor. Then Thursday, July 7th, 5 officers were killed in Dallas by 25-year-old Micah Johnson. And then Sunday, July 17th, 3 officers killed in Baton Rouge by Gavin Long. That's a lot going on. And in a close proximity. That's a lot. And then when the protesting is going on, we see the bystanders and the police officers at each other, and everybody is just engaging in what they're engaging in. But when you look at it, we have officers shooting victims, and now people are now shooting police officers. What's happening?
Well, it's not new. I think that the fact that the media is able to show it, one of the things that Dr. King understood about the power of television is when they beat those folk on the bridge in Selma, if the cameras weren't there, it basically didn't happen, but it did happen. And it was brutality that helped spark the response to that. But it was not new. One of the things that we are dealing with right now is Walter Scott if that camera was not going, he would just been another dead black man. No police would have been in jail. The police had already started to work their deal out on it, but the camera was going. Alton Sterling, if he had not had a camera on his murder, there would have been no outcry, because he'd be just another brother who got the narrative of how he died defined by the people who killed him. Now, the difference, at least for me, is when the police officer was killed, the automatic assumption was it was tied to what happened in the places before that. And logic asked this question: if that's going to happen, then why would it take this long? And why did it happen in Dallas when the killing happened in Baton Rouge? A part of the issue. Because the truth of the matter is that the data says that this is not a spike in policing, killing. What is the spike is how it's done, weapons that are being done, and how many can be done at one time. We've been trying to stop these guns from getting in the hands of folk long before they started shooting police officers.
Okay, hold on. I saw you getting...
One of the things I've been getting to, not Second Amendment rights and everything Dr. Rivers was talking about, but the issue when it comes to law enforcement officers, you know, I want you just to imagine this. Somebody is going to do a job that they took an oath, and as a result of it, I got killed.
That's right.
Just think about that. So the issue would be, it's not the numbers, it's doing something upholding the Constitution.
Because that's what we expect.
And the idea of the expectation of law enforcement, when you call, I got to come. And as a result of me coming, I get killed.
And that's what we need to get back to.
Right. So the issue would be when it comes to this particular country, even when it comes to the cameras on what the police officers are doing, it boils down to integrity and trust.
That's right.
I got to be trusted to do the right thing.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's what it's based on.
Yep.
All right.
Dean got to be guaranteed that I will look out for his rights.
Yes.
The same like I look out for everybody else's rights.
Exactly.
One of the things when we have marches, discuss with individuals, what is the end state of your march? What we hope to accomplish. I want to be peaceful. I want to discuss this. I want to discuss that.
Hold that right there. The Baja?
Yeah, so it's awesome that there's beings that take this oath to protect my constitutional rights. If that's the fact, then why do I need to know my rights every time I have to interact with these individuals that are supposed to be protecting my rights? In the same sense, how can we live in a country with the rule of law and order when somebody that is wearing a badge can shoot and kill someone because they fear for their lives and to not be held accountable for their actions? JFK said, peaceful revolution, those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. Now, while the Black Lives Matter movement is a non-violent movement based upon Dr. King's strategy of negotiating, demonstrating, and resisting, we have people that are tired of being brutalized and murdered and seeing their family members brutalized and murdered in the streets and nobody being held accountable for it. And so they take justice in their own hands. This is just the reality of the situation. From our side, that's just the reality of the situation. How much longer can we exist within a country that's supposed to be ruled by law and order, in which people that abuse the law, that are supposed to be protecting our rights, are not being held accountable for that?
All right. We're going to take another break. So when we come back, I have the three wonderful individuals here. Deputy Chief from the police side.
Yes, sir.
The Baja, representing Black Lives Matter, like the community, and Pastor Rivers, the faith-based side, along with National Action Network. I've got the three right people here, and we're going to tell the community what we need to do to bring this thing together, like unity, okay? We'll talk about it right after this break. Welcome back to Bounce Around Charleston. We're having a wonderful conversation here, and when we're off camera, there's a wonderful conversation going on that you can't hear. So I want Deputy Chief Taylor to start as to how can we bring this together, and we're going to come straight down the line.
One of the things that I think that could bring us closer is trust. And the bigger thing is having trust with the law enforcement and also the community before we have an event. Come down and just have a discussion, talk when everything appears to be going right. Don't wait until things appear to be going wrong and try to come with a solution.
Thank you, sir. Dabaha?
So the trust has to have accountability in it. I can't trust you if I can't know that you're going to be held accountable for your actions. The justice system is not doing a good job. The DOJ is not doing a good job. The cities of North Charleston and the Charleston are not doing a good job at making sure the community has some oversight over the way that the policing happens for two reasons. And these are the two reasons that I think we can work together in the two ways. Public safety must be ensured by policing not based upon numbers, but policing based upon intimate knowledge of the community. So we want officers from our communities, officers that live in our communities. The second part is to be able to have a citizens review board with subpoena power so the people that live in the community can oversee officers that have complaints filed against them, so we can get those officers out of the community. Nothing hurts the trust more than officers that are not being held accountable for abusing their authority. That is the problem. That's what brings us to this table, and we have to speak to that.
Thank you, sir. Pastor Rivers?
I said when we had the community forum, Muadim came, and not directed to him, but I said at the beginning that the currency of our transaction today is respect. And you don't have to agree. You don't have to even like us or like each other. But before we can begin, we have to have respect that's mutual. And as I said, the key to it, yes, Officer Taylor is intimate in Charleston. He knows the community, they know him. When he shows up, there's a sense of respect. He's earned it. Why? Because he's used respect in a way that didn't stop him from being a great police officer, didn't stop him from protecting his life and the life of others, but he uses the respect is how he transacts his business. That doesn't happen always. I've had some very disrespectful encounters with police officers, and that they want to dress you down and make you kneel down, bow you down, and they expect you to like that. That won't happen. But if you ask the question, what should happen? And first of all, we need truth and reconciliation. We need the truth. Folk want to hear what they want to hear, not the truth. So you would be a great agent to help bring together the truth and reconciliation needs to happen because I want to hear him. I do not tell him what to say.
Okay.
I don't run from what he has to say because I'm not afraid of him. So people need to understand that when Black Lives Matter, what the law professor said it so well, preacher, that many people read words that are not there. The slogan is not only Black Lives Matter, it says Black Lives Matter. Why? Because those are only lives that have been in question. We stipulate that all lives matter. We sure stipulate that white lives matter. If you black in America, you know if there's one group of lives that matter, it's white folk. The difference is when we say Black Lives Matter, it's not because we're excluding all the other lives. We're saying the only lives that have a question over their heads that say, does your life matter, are the black ones. Because everybody else, when something happens to the dogs, you get upset. The cats got a lobby. But when black folk get killed, it seems like the only people who care are some black folk. So Black Lives Matter does not mean only Black Lives Matter.
All lives matter.
But that's not a question.
No,
we know all lives matter. But the question is, do Black Lives matter?
Oh, yes.
Well, you say that, but the data says otherwise, so that's why they came up with the slogan, Black Lives Matter. Why? Because it's the only set of lives that had a question.
Well, that's why we're here today, so we can let the whole public know.
Blue lives matter.
We know that everyone.
I want them lives to matter. But if you can say blue lives matter, the sister said, and be opposed to Black Lives Matter, that means you really are saying only some lives matter.
All right. Well, let me tell you something. You heard it right here on Bounce Around Charleston from Deputy Chief Jerome Taylor, the Baja, Black Lives Matter, Pastor Rivers from National Action Network and Charity Missionary Baptist Church. We've got to now bring this thing together. And what I did learn today from all of you, even when there is a protest, many times it's not the people that signed for the protest to take place, but you have folk that come from the outside that can stir up a problem.
The police are essential to successful protests. The thing that hurt me most about Dallas is those officers were protecting protesters. We can't have that. The first time I ever wore a bulletproof vest, and I won a few, was in a protest because the first people we talked to have a protest are those people because we got to have them so I can do this.
Okay, I'm going to have to bring you back so you can finish that.
Thank you, Chris. I understand.
But we thank you for joining us here today on Bounce Around Charleston.
Thank you, sir.
And if you would like to be a guest on Bounce Around Charleston, email us at bouncearound@live5news.com. And don't forget to join our fan pages. Thank you again for joining us today on Bounce Around Charleston.